Going to the law courts today. Hi, this is my video essay on my court observations for Bill. Hi. As you walk around downtown Winnipeg in search of something to do, you might find yourself interested in getting to know the ins and outs of Manitoba's judicial system. Why not? What with the progressive conservatives' tough on crime motto during the 2023 provincial election, you'd be right in feeling that pull of curiosity. Where does the act of toughness truly begin? Is it with the well-funded police as they hunt and catch those violent criminals? Or is it in the judgment handed down from their honor to the defendant? What a loaded question. If we want to look into the root cause of crime, well, we'd have to look at society. But what about it? There are a few parts of society that we can look at for influence on our historical dealings with crime, punishment, and the law. We'll look at elitism and its relationship to the exclusive architecture of our buildings and the architecture of our legal system. And we will go into the criminalization of the peasantry by extreme control over the lives and of access through over-legislation. While there is a wealth of other reasons that our world has shaped our relationship with the judicial system, these are the few main reasons that I'm going to be focusing on. They influence each other, sway the depth of impact of each other, and evolve alongside us. We see the separation of crime doers from the normals of society in the architecture of our law buildings, including the materials used and their history. Just outside of the Manitoba law courts, you can see a magnificent sculpture of what I used to hyperphantasia about as everyone's favorite water tyrant, Tentacruel. This piece is made by Gordon Reeve, finished in 1984, and aptly named Justice. Now, while art is subjective and up to the interpretation of the consumer, I'll give you my hot take on the meaning behind my most favorite sculpture in Winnipeg. The towering monstrosity sits high and very near the brown-tinted glass window of the Manitoba law courts. Her tentacles reaching and intertwining with one another, mere inches away from the possibility of shattering those very windows which house the thing she represents. As you, the foot traffic, feel overwhelmed by the height and the 30,000 pounds worth of glistening silver steel encaging you, one of her limbs curls under her belly, waiting to be touched. You put a hand to it, and the touch feels, forbidden. Illegal, even. Are you allowed to participate in this work of art? How much power do you have to move the arms of her honor, Justice? In this case, you have all of the power. It is not without you that these carefully piled and soldered scraps of metal become a masterpiece. So you push. The piece has been there for decades now, 40 years almost, so your will is not without great effort. Still, you shove. You have to dig your heel into the ground, lean your body into the arms, and use what you've been given. Use yourself where you're at to make a motion. As you finally hoist the arm above your head, you turn away, looking back to witness the effect you have had. What comes from this is the threatening creak of a swinging arm coming down towards you and back up again. She does this for a while, and you look up to the high and glossy window. With every swing back up, your heart kind of races. Will she hit the glass this time? What about next time? Will justice ever shatter the very thing that holds her captive? The thing that uses her? No, but what a rush all the same. I think this sculpture screams to our relationship with the judicial system. The feeling of forbidden participation, the anticipation of broken glass, always being near the cause of chaos and never truly knowing when it's going to be your fault next. You have no control over the structure you interact with, and yet you interact with it all the same. Your life brings you to a place of overwhelm and curiosity, sometimes a breaking point where you just need to interact with that thing, the law. Sometimes on purpose, with your hands in your heels, and sometimes by proxy, as you watch someone else play with the arms of justice. Maybe you could too. Maybe you could too. Most people don't get the chance to choose the outcome of their interaction with the law, but they do depend on the various roles in the courts to guide them along the way. As you walk through the front door of the law courts, after passing our 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒐𝒂𝒍𝒊𝒆𔑔, you follow the signs directing the public through the zigzag black rope of security. No pictures, please. You take out your keys and your cell phone, your weapons and your coffee. Make sure everything is tucked away in that little gray bin, and you wait until the 4 armed security officers give you permission to step through the metal detector. Step 1, complete. What is step 2? Well, that depends. Why are you there? Did you do a crime, or are you trying to rescind your very first surety because your ex has this quirky little habit of beating you in the middle of the night? True story. Just ask the information desk. If you're an interested citizen, the kind folk encased behind the information desk will point you towards the board in front of the golden-plated elevator. All you need to do is read. Wait, what? What are you even looking at? What are these names? Who are these people? Where can I go? It's not wholly or easily navigable if you aren't used to the process already. And as I stood in front of the board of unknowable trials, I had to wonder who are these people? Thankfully, a random short thing in a nice suit walked past, and he saw my confusion and he suggested a room for me to pop into. Number 410. Now, by sheer happenstance, I ran into another classmate, and together we went to court. Immediately to my left were 2 rows of empty black plastic chairs. We sat down, surprising the prosecution, who was in the middle of talking about a breached NCO. After recommending time served, the prosecution rested, and the defense spoke about the defendant's family history in the form of a Gladue report. His mother, dead by the time he was 3, a residential school survivor, and a victim of the 60s scoop. A broken man suffering with addiction and alcohol dependency. Not a bad man, but a hurting man. He was sober for 3 years before COVID hit, and as so many people forced into lockdown during the world's most invasive global trauma, the man found himself back around the bottle and his relationship tense and volatile. 2 complete strangers learned about the lifetime of some man sitting silently on the courtroom's corner television, while 3 of Manitoba's most just negotiated his fate. I sat quietly listening intently, and as the sentencing was doled out and his next hearing was scheduled, the judge addressed us. "Are you 2 here for any reason?" Silence. "We're students here supposed to observe trials for our classroom assignment we were given in class." He goes on. "All right." The clerk, a small, stout man in black and white dress, says to the audience of 2, "All rise." I missed it, so Her Honor chides us. "You're supposed to stand when the clerk says all rise." Oops, I knew that. We stood up a little bit embarrassed. Her Honor addressed us again. "Do you have any questions for us?" As the clerk makes his way to the court's backroom door. An exit away from the public? He stands there and he waits to be dismissed. Seems like the prosecution, defense, judge, and clerk all know where they're supposed to be. They know what they're supposed to do, and they know when they're allowed to leave. Years of experience has made it easier to work within this system and make money off of the lives of broken men like the ones still on the courtroom television. I ask first, prosecution, who do you represent? Who are you supposed to be in this scenario? A taller white guy with black rimmed glasses and a nice pair of slacks says to me, well, in circumstances like this, I guess. The public? Technically, I am the Crown's representative, but mostly I prosecute with the public interest in mind. Prosecution in favor of the public interest. Now, it wasn't the time and place to dig into that, but I did wonder what that meant to the public when they become reactors to a circumstance that's created by the same legislation the prosecutor is dedicated to upholding. To the defense, I wondered about the Gladue report, and the shorter but not that short other white guy in the nice slacks and glasses explained. He talked about why Gladue is used, and the influence it had on conversations between prosecution and himself. That Gladue and those conversations meant that the judge was able to make sentencing recommendations based on the influence of life circumstances within the context of each individual trial. Okay. Next, I asked the judge about how Gladue influences her decisions. She explained, in cases about violence and more serious crimes, that Gladue reports hold a lot of weight in her decisions, and that the intention behind them is more about restoration and reconciliation. Reconciliation for the effects of the same legislation the prosecution, defense, and judge uphold and make money off of? Ugh. Okay. So it's complicated. And you know what? I actually think that's the point. How did we get here? On every aspect of our judicial system, how did we get here? What are the social levels of our judicial system that we're addressing? Indigeneity, colonialism, accessibility, the air of elitism. Accessibility is determined by our legislations, policies, and practices. Legislation in Canada stems from colonialism, European anti-poor legislation, and the criminalization of Indigenous forms of governance. And the criminalization of Indigenous forms of governance, I wish I didn't have to say this, but very obviously, ended in the criminalization of Indigenous peoples themselves. The fact that our judicial system is founded on the oppression of others is the root cause of the need for that system in the first place. Anything to build gains for the same people who made those rules in the first place. Basically, you see a person for who they are, call it a crime because you don't like the way it meshes with your existence, and then punish them for it. I just thought that was interesting. Anyways, thanks for listening. Here's the outfit I wore to watch the trial. I want to give a huge thanks to the judge, the prosecution, and the defense for taking the time to answer my questions and for giving me some real tasteless reality to think about. Hi, Bill. My sources used for this video are linked in the description, as well as on my reference page. Okay, that's it. We're done. Bye. Whoa. Pentacruel. 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 Ah. Are you two here for any reason? That's not what she sounds like.